The legend himself, Jacques Doucet from WAFB, the sports director. Jacques, how are you? How's it going?
Noah, good morning. It's winter. Winter's settling in. There I am. All
yes.
right.
I just want to make sure you're camera ready, Jacques. You look great.
I think I am camera ready,
huh?
Or was I not?
Yeah, just wanted to prepare the people.
I got you. Well, good morning. How's everyone doing today after another tough night for the Tigers last night on the men's basketball court? The women had their first huge challenge today at Tennessee. And LSU baseball starts, I think, 5 weeks from Friday. Softball, 4 weeks from Friday. So it's cold outside, but we're heading towards the spring a little bit.
Yes. No, I mean, it's pretty crisp air this morning outdoors. But obviously, Jacques, we haven't been able to catch up in a little while. We wanted to start off getting your thoughts on the bowl game and LSU's performance against Baylor and just kind of what you saw in that game.
Well, we sent John Eads to cover it. He did a great job for us. I thought it was a very nice way for LSU to finish off the season. Certainly, if Chris Hilton would play in every game like he does the regular season finale and the bowl game, he'd be all SEC. So hopefully next year they can keep him healthy start to finish, although I don't think he's officially announced he's coming back. I think we all assume he will. But, certainly he had a big game. I thought Garrett Nussmeier had a tremendous game. Everyone's excited about what kind of progress he can make from year one to year two as a starter, just like Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels did with the Tigers. The defense can improve a bit, but a pick six there by the linebacker and a bigger crowd than I expected too. I mean, it wasn't the 2015 Texas Bowl when Leonard Fournette was playing for LSU, Patrick Mahomes, Texas Tech, where they sold out the stadium and it was packed, but it was certainly much, much better than that debacle that LSU played against Kansas State at the end of 2021 when Coach O already was out the door. Brad Davis had to inherit less than 40 scholarship players. And so it was nice for LSU to finish the year on a 3-game winning streak. I applaud the guys that played in the game. I will tell you that I have heard from around there, and I think there's been a little bit of debate on this, but I think I have heard that they have heard a lot of complaints about the constant changing of the uniform by fans. And I think that's one thing where, it comes up sometimes and people get called boomer and this and that. But there comes a time when the adults have to say, hey, you can't have Skittles for breakfast. Hey, you can't play in the street. I mean, somebody has to take a stand and say, look, we're LSU. The uniform is the gold helmet, the white jersey, the gold pants. We will occasionally wear purple at home as we did in the 80s, but let's stop changing the uniform every week and let's stop having guys who came out of the transfer portal and didn't grow up on LSU football and don't have a sense of tradition and whatnot. Let us change the uniform every week. So anyway, I thought the purple and the white helmets and the white pants still look good and all that, but that's one thing I heard from people at LSU a little bit. I sat down with Verge Alsbury the other day. He came in, and it's up on Jock Talk, one of our latest ones. If you want to hear about scheduling a little bit, perhaps week 0 games in the future, what's the future of neutral site games, that kind of thing. So that all kind of changes, Noah. I mean, a lot can change because, you heard from LSU fans, hey, we're tired of playing. We don't like these neutral site games,
right.
Not in Tiger Stadium. Like when Verge played Ohio State, Florida State, Texas A&M when they were in the SEC, Miami of Florida, all came to Tiger Stadium. Florida State, I think I said that. Mm-hmm. We want to see those games in Tiger Stadium. Well, now LSU's going to play Clemson next year to start the year, and they're supposed to host Clemson in 2026. Now I'm hearing, well, in this 12-team playoff, we don't need to take unnecessary risk. We need to get Clemson off the schedule. So it's funny. It's always what you're not doing
right.
That is what people want. So that's a long answer for how LSU did in the bowl game.
Yes. What are your feelings on the Clemson opener and kind of where that is now with the 12-team playoff of kind of picking schedule, the strength of schedule not really mattering as much as your wins and losses?
Yeah, would you judge LSU for tucking tail if they were able to get out of that bowl game with that? I mean, we're talking about uniforms, but also this is the same. It's the same program that's talking about uniforms, and if they decided to essentially run from a game, I'd imagine there'd be much debate about it.
Yeah, I mean, talking to Verge the other day, I didn't get the sense that LSU is going to try to change that game. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that would probably look bad. And knowing the opposing coach, Dabo Swinney, I think he'd have a lot to say about that in the media if LSU didn't play that game. But, yeah, I mean, you had, the playoff is an exciting idea, and I think we all watched the games. How many good games have we had so far? One?
One.
The one with
One.
Texas and
Arizona State.
I mean, that the rest of these games, I put them on. They never get off the ground. They've been duds. We haven't had many exciting playoff games to speak of, and I guess arguably you had some teams that got in with three losses that maybe shouldn't have been in, and maybe some teams with 3 losses that should have been in that weren't in. And so I guess they'll talk about that next year. But LSU's schedule next year. What, you got to go to Alabama, you got to go to Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
You're still not playing Georgia and Texas, so I guess you're benefiting in some way. But then this year LSU didn't play Auburn and Mississippi State like they have every single year for 100 years. It feels like, or for a long time, and those were 2 of the worst teams in the SEC. So yeah, I mean, and it's not Lloyd. Another thing too, when you play those games in Vegas. I joke around. It's like you're Taylor Swift or Beyonce. You just show up, you get a huge check to perform, and you leave. You don't have to, sell concessions, do your law enforcement. Although you get a $5 million check, you get 100 free hotels for 2 nights. When you play these non-conference games, it's kind of a wash. Obviously Clemson gets all the ticket sales and all of the, they got to pay for everything, and then LSU gets it back the next year. I think Verge told me LSU gets 5,000 tickets in their allotment at Clemson, and I think it's a real exciting way to begin the year. I've never been to Clemson. I don't know if LSU's ever played at Clemson. I don't think they have. I think every game LSU's played against Clemson's been in a bowl game or a playoff game or a national championship, I should say. So, I'm excited about the game, but at the same time, I guess, you're saying we've lost 5 straight season openers. We haven't won a season opener since Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson beat Georgia Southern or wherever it was in Tiger Stadium there in 2019. So that's kind of what's hanging over Brian Kelly. He's been good in bowl games. He's 3-0 in bowl games, but he's 0-3 in season openers.
You mentioned the 2019 season opener, obviously. Do you think that there's a world, obviously coming off a conversation with somebody that can maybe make this possible in Verge, do you think that there's a world where LSU tries to schedule a non-conference opener before the Clemson game? Is that even a viable option to schedule an Appalachian State or what have you, kick the shit out of them, and then now you play Clemson?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing to do would be to move Southeastern up to the season opener and play them first, and then have a bye week in that spot where they're supposed to play Southeastern. I think LSU's got home games against Louisiana Tech, Western Kentucky. I think it's real late in the season. But Verge's words were not now, not right now, not right now. I mean, the SEC the other night announced their schedules for everybody, right? So I don't think you can change it. But he said, and I think his answer was 2026, 2027. We'll take a look at it. Nothing's off the table, I think is what he said. And in the past, I think it was a much more adamant, we're LSU, we don't play week 0 games type thing. And so I guess in 2026 they might look at it, but I don't think it's changing at the moment for this year. And I mean, I grew up in Louisiana, and one of my pet peeves was people who used to gripe about how hot it is outside. But the last 2 summers have been on another level, and I don't know how many people would. I know there's not much difference between late August and the beginning of September, but playing a game in Tiger Stadium in late August, that's going to be sweaty. So I don't know the fan experience and all that, but I like the way they've attacked the transfer portal. I think I like what they've added to the team so far in terms of wide receivers and playmakers, and the fact Nussmeier's coming back is exciting, and so I think this team right now has the feel of being so far off, and I don't know, but it has the feeling of maybe more of a 10-2 team than an 8-4 team that we saw this past year.
Yeah, and talking about the transfer portal and the bowl game even, and looking at kind of a potential team for 2025, what do you see as needs left, still left for LSU, whether it's, we discussed like safety, tight end, things like that. What position groups do you see as needs left in the portal for LSU?
Well, I think they still need to get a safety. I mean, I think safety play was something that they were criticized a lot on last year. I'd still like an explanation why Major Burns didn't play in the bowl game. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. That he wouldn't play in the game. I haven't heard an answer on that, but I think they need to be smarter back there in the secondary. I think that they've gotten some rushers to replace Braden Swinson and Savion Jones. It wouldn't hurt to get another one. I think that they've addressed offensive line needs, getting the guy from Northwestern and the guy from Virginia Tech. I think those are two veteran players that'll help out immediately. I've joked, I've said that, a guy like Miles Frazier is almost a perfect kind of pickup. You got him from Florida International. He was eager to prove himself, comes from a smaller school, and he starts on your line for 3 years. I think guys like that can really help. And at the same time, I was chatting with Brian Lazar the other day at the LSU basketball game. He had done a breakdown where a large majority of the guys who made all SEC, 60%, 70%, had come out of high school and played at that school, meaning they weren't transfers from other schools, going from an Auburn to an LSU or a Florida to a Georgia or whatever, although there's still plenty of those guys out there. And in this new era, certainly we haven't complained about Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Angel Reese, Jasmine Carson, Kateri Poole, LaDasia Williams, Tommy White,
right.
Paul Skeens, all these people that have played pivotal roles in winning LSU championships. And then, so I guess you're talking with your mouth full when you don't win championships or you don't have the kind of season you want, and you say, well, I don't like this new era and things are going on. And there's no doubt there's a lot of people that are turned off by it. I mean, I saw people from the Holidays family that have said, I don't pay attention to it as much as I used to because of the new state of things. And, visiting with Ricky Blanton the other day, Ricky Blanton, one of the most popular players in LSU basketball history, played 4 years at LSU, went to the Final Four, hit big shots. When it was his senior night, people are emotionally invested in him when he comes out. And now, it's a whole different era where it's like, Cam Carter has 1,000 points in his career. He scored 950 at another school, but please rise to your feet and, cheer him on. So it's a whole different era now with, how can I be emotionally attached to a player that's been here 3 months and is leaving? So it's the way it is. Obviously, they've gotten more donors at LSU to attack this thing and get better players. I've heard about in my neighborhood, people coming in with players and their parents to, find them places to live and, make this the best setup they can for them. But, I just, the things that it's changed so much, the things that we used to sell kids on, Tiger Stadium, facilities, history, a lot of stuff's out the window. How much can you pay me and how much playing time will I get? Right. And that's why Nick Saban got out.
Yeah, no, definitely. And talking about the transfer portal, obviously one of the visitors they have this week is a tight end in Donovan Green. To talk about that position, Trades Green is one of the biggest storylines coming out of the bowl game. What did you see from the freshman and his performance?
Well, Trades is interesting. He was a basketball player first. He was getting college offers as a basketball player first when he was at East Feliciana. And then I think he decided to play football maybe his junior year of high school or something like that. He goes out and he catches like 2 touchdowns on a Friday. And when he wakes up Saturday morning, he's already got an offer from Houston, if I remember correctly. So, like a Caleb Jackson, really green to the sport, hasn't played a whole lot of football, but obviously made a huge impact. I mean, his height and his ability to make catches and be graceful and all that. He's obviously not a big, thick kid like the Bauer kid they got from Oklahoma, who'd be more of a guy who can catch a lot of passes, but maybe a guy you implement a lot more in blocking schemes and whatnot. But it'd be interesting to see, what happens with Trades with this basketball thing. I know Matt McMahon was asked a couple of questions at his recent press conference, and we didn't really get a whole lot of answers in terms of when or if and when Trades is going to play basketball. As long as I've been at Channel 9, and even before that, I can't really think of anybody who's done both football and basketball. It's just really hard in terms of the seasons overlapping and your body, and I'm bulking up, I'm slimming down, that kind of thing. So I know way back when Marcus Spears and Michael Clayton attempted to do it, and John Brady at the time, I think, was out to make a point. And those guys, didn't last too long. You think you're just going to waltz in here and think this is intramurals or something. I'll show you. And so that didn't last at all. Those guys never played in the game. But Trey-Dez, then he went on to Zachary, had a big senior season at Zachary. He was ruled ineligible for basketball his senior year, couldn't play. Interesting thing there. So, I think they probably need to address, maybe get one more tight end in there. A guy like Pimpton, it seemed like, hey, Mason Taylor's going pro. Here's an opportunity for you. So I don't know why he left. Maybe he was told by the coaches he wasn't good enough and to find another spot. I'm not sure, but it seemed like an opportunity opened up for him there to compete and try to, help play at the position. It didn't happen. So, that's and I think the wide receiver they got from Kentucky, the wide receiver they got from Oklahoma, Anderson, I think it'll make the offense very interesting. And the running back spot, I know they got two very good guys coming out of high school. That'll be true freshmen. Josh Williams now gone. And, hey, Caleb Jackson, it's your third year. What can they get out of him in the rushing attack?
Yeah, no, definitely. And talking about Trey-Dez Green and, potentially playing basketball, we can just kind of discuss last night and what we saw. But even more than last night, going back to the Vanderbilt loss as well, LSU basketball under Matt McMahon starting 0-2 in conference play so far this season in what's going to be an absolute gauntlet of SEC conference basketball. What have you seen from the Tigers in their first two league games?
Well, the game on Saturday, they just struggled to score. I mean, the first half I'm watching, and it just feels like right away I'm like, Vanderbilt's the better team. They just feel like the better team. And this league this year, not breaking any news here, is just a Shark Tank. I mean, right. I don't know when, the first two games, you don't want to be melodramatic and say this is a must win or that's a must win when you play 18 SEC games. But, I mean, just taking a look at it here, they go to Ole Miss this weekend, who's number 23. They host Arkansas next Tuesday, and then you play at number 10 Texas A&M, at number 5 Alabama, at number 2 Auburn. Those three games in a row there, it's just really rough. And so you kind of looked at this game against Vanderbilt the other day and said, hey, we got to win this one or split at least when we go to Missouri. And I don't want to say either game was not competitive, but, both of those games you trail by double digits. Last night, I casually watched the game. I started watching it in the second half and watched a decent amount of it, and they kind of got close a little bit, but then Missouri was just really good, so pulled away. So LSU still, when you look at it, they're doing the best they can. I'm rooting for Matt McMahon. I know he wants to do well, and I just, when I went to go visit last year, we went to go visit with Will Wade and McNeese and talk to him. And, Will Wade, God bless him, thank you so much, speaks the truth and it doesn't hold back and says that's a hard job to win, a hard place to win LSU basketball. Everybody's got to be lined up. Everybody's got to be, caring about it. And that's always a debate about LSU is how much they care about basketball. Now, certainly on the women's side, they've proven they care a lot to make the investment they've made in Kim Mulkey and the players they've gotten, and for a sport that does not make money, that loses money, and I think loses more money than any other sport. Now, you can argue about things you can't pay for. When Joe Burrow gives that Heisman Trophy speech and makes everyone across the country cry. That's free advertising, and that is great to reinforce the LSU brand. And so when LSU women's basketball makes deep runs in the tournament and wins the whole thing a couple years back, that is awesome free advertisement for your school. Men's basketball is one of 2.5 sports, basically. Baseball makes some money, but outside of football, it's the only other sport that clears money. And, you had a paid crowd. They said, it's a packed house at the PMAC. The crowd's packed here at Vanderbilt. And I looked up and the paid attendance, 8,400. That's 5,000 tickets that are unsold. And this is going to be the height of the excitement. I hope they get some bigger crowds later. So it's hard here to get people's attention. And we always talk about it. You've got a window between LSU football and the start of LSU baseball, which is on Valentine's Day, February 14th, to get those people's attention, that 5-6 weeks there. And, there's no player, there's no Stromile Swift, there's no Glenn Big Baby Davis, there's no Tyrus Thomas, there's no guy that kind of elevates above the other guys on the floor and sells tickets and wins games in a big way. They got some great kids, they're doing their best, but right now, it just looks like they might make the NIT again, and I hope that they can somehow make the NCAA tournament, but they're facing a gauntlet, as we talked about here, in terms of who they got to play and the way things are going right now. So I think it is heading in the right direction with the addition of Coach Patrick and the recruiting for next year. They've got a dynamite recruiting class. So maybe at this time next year, we're talking about a much more competitive team. But it just seems like they're going to have to play at a very high level, and the other team that they're playing is going to have to slack a little bit for them to win some of these conferences.